Can you fool a self-driving car? That's the title of a video posted by Mark Rober, and it instantly blew up the internet. He ran a series of tests comparing a car equipped with the Luminar sensors to a Tesla that relies solely on cameras. And the results were absolutely shocking. The first car successfully avoided obstacles, while the Tesla plowed through dummies and even crashed straight into a fake road painted on a wall. After that, some people slammed the YouTuber, accusing him of staging the tests and even of colluding with Austin Russell, the founder of Luminar, who also happens to be Mark's friend. Others turned their criticism toward Elon Musk, accusing him of cutting corners on safety and even predicting Tesla's downfall.
Removing radar from the car straight up killed any chance Tesla had at being the best at full self-driving.
So I wanted to understand what's really going on. Is Tesla actually that bad? I've spent years in tech development and worked with a variety of systems, and let's just say I noticed quite a few odd things in Mark's video. Now I don't have friends who sell sensors, but I do have friends who research and develop self-driving tech. So today I'm launching my own investigation to uncover what might have been left out, whether the test results could have been faked, why Elon Musk relies solely on cameras, and whether that's truly dangerous. And of course, I'll show you how Tesla really reacts to a painted wall. So, in Mark's experiment, he used his Tesla Model Y and a Luminar test vehicle equipped with the company's signature sensor. Luminar isn't just some flashy startup. They run full-scale production with the high-end hardware already going into cars from giants like Volvo and Mercedes. This also wasn't their first face-off with Tesla. In fact, Luminar has been throwing shade at their competitor in promo videos for quite a while now. And well, crashing Tesla into dummies has become kind of tradition for them. There's a reason for that. Musk has been a loud critic of LiDAR technology, which is exactly what Luminar builds around. He's spoken out against it many times.
LiDAR is a fool's errand. And anyone relying on LiDAR is doomed. That's ridiculous. You'll see.
So let's see if he's right. There were a total of 6 tests. In the first 2, the cars had to detect a dummy standing still on the road and then react in time if the dummy suddenly appeared in front of the vehicle. And I was just shocked when the Tesla hit the dummy that was just standing there. I mean, normally it has no trouble recognizing traffic lights, signs and pedestrians. But I was even more surprised when I found out why that happened. Look, Tesla offers autopilot and full self-driving, which you have to pay extra for. And if you look closely, you'll spot the very subtle hint "supervised" in big bold letters right in the name. The description says the basic autopilot has traffic-aware cruise control and auto steer. Meanwhile, full self-driving has a much fancier feature list, but it still requires driver supervision and it doesn't make the car autonomous. So it wouldn't be surprising if Tesla failed at some point. But here's the twist. We'll never know how it would have done, because Mark didn't activate the self-driving function. He only used autopilot, which is basically just advanced cruise control. Why? Philip DeFranco asked him the same thing.
Was there any reason you opted to test autopilot on the Tesla instead of full self-driving?
The sensor is not different. Whether it's full self-driving or autopilot, knowing if that's a wall or not, that doesn't change. So I think I'd be happy to rerun the experiment in full self-driving. I'm pretty confident it wouldn't be a different result.
So Mark says it doesn't matter whether self-driving is on or off, because the problem lies in the sensor, which supposedly can see the wall. Okay, let me ask you, can you see this wall? Then the sensor sees it too, because the Tesla's only sensor here is a regular camera. Sure, it's lower quality than Mark's, but it's still more than enough to capture small details in a giant painted wall. It's not the hardware, it's the algorithm that decides how computer interprets the image and whether it sees a wall or not. And we'll get back to that at the end of the video. But even Mark himself showed that the mode matters. In the first test, the Tesla hit the mannequin with autopilot off.
As we were relying on the automatic emergency braking system to stop for the car.
Then he switches modes.
So the alternative is to use autopilot.
And the car stopped. Same sensors, different algorithm, and suddenly it sees the dummy. So yeah, it's kind of strange to try to fool a self-driving car and not actually turn on its self-driving mode, right? Well, okay, at least he used autopilot, and with that on, Tesla passed the first 2 tests. Sure, the tests were far from perfectly objective, but that's not going to stop us from digging deeper and getting to the truth. Next up, the fog test.
This'll be interesting.
The Luminar car detected the dummy in time and stopped.
We plunged through the fog, coming to a very sudden break.
As for the Tesla, well, it's pretty easy to guess, knowing that the self-driving function wasn't even on.
Oh, fudge!
So, what's the catch here? To figure it out, we need to talk a bit about how LiDAR actually works. You've probably heard of radar, that spinning thing on a screen that movies love to show. In reality, it's just an antenna that sends out a radio wave and waits for it to bounce back off something. And since radio waves travel at the speed of light, we can calculate the distance by multiplying that speed by the time it took for the signal to bounce back. To see in all directions, radar spins in circles, scanning the world around it. LiDAR is basically the same thing, except instead of radio waves, it uses light, laser light to be exact. Radio waves are white and fuzzy. They can say, hey, something's there, but not what it is. Laser beams, on the other hand, are sharp and precise, able to detect the shape, edges, and position of objects. LiDAR literally blasts light in all directions and builds a cloud of dots, a 3D map of the world around it. Inside, it's packed with tiny spinning lasers, sweeping the area super fast. You can even see this in action on a regular Roomba. And there are horror games where you wander in total darkness with nothing but LiDAR dots showing the world around you.
The valve did not open the door.
Kind of terrifying, but a great way to feel what a LiDAR-equipped machine sees. And it works great, as long as the air is clear. But as soon as there's dust or smoke, self-driving system starts to struggle. Fog is made up of countless microscopic water droplets suspended in the air. And water has a wonderful ability to absorb and scatter light. You can even bend a laser beam using water. And there are some cool laser experiments that show this in action. If the fog is thin, the laser still scatters, but some of it gets through. But if there are too many water droplets, the beam gets reflected back before reaching its target, and the LiDAR might mistake the fog for a solid object. This can cause all kinds of problems.
And it can even happen with something as simple as steam raising from a manhole cover, which can absolutely stop these vehicles in their tracks.
Interestingly, that didn't happen in Mark's test, even though the fog looked pretty thick.
Optically, with my own eyes, I can no longer see that there's a kid through this fog. The LiDAR has no issue.
But why can the LiDAR see the mannequin when our eyes and cameras only see gray fog? So, first off, LiDAR uses a laser beam. That's light packed into a super narrow ray, which helps it cut through the fog way better. Now compare that to regular light, like what comes from a lamp or the sun. It scatters in every direction and loses power fast, unlike a focused laser beam. And for me to see that mannequin, sunlight has to pass through the atmosphere, bounce off the object, and make it all the way back to my eyes. So, if the fog is too thick, there just isn't enough power left. Now here's the second thing. LiDARs don't use visible light, cause if they did, well, a ride in a robot taxi would look like this. To avoid turning our cities into a rave, LiDARs use infrared lasers, which are invisible to us. In fact, this invisible light is used in a lot of devices, like pretty much every remote control. If you look at one, you'll find a little LED. You've probably never seen it glow, but it's glowing. You just can see it, but your phone camera can. Try pointing a remote at your phone and pressing a button. You'll see it flash. And infrared has another superpower, wavelength. Ultraviolet has short waves, so it gets scattered by fog, blocked by clothes, and even glass. If you wear glasses, you know you don't tan through them, and by the end of summer, you might look like an inverted panda. And don't even get me started on clothes. Visible light has longer wavelength. It passes through glass, water, and other transparent or semi-transparent materials just fine. But infrared light beats them all. Just check this out. Yes, LiDARs don't use the highest values. They usually stays somewhere in this range, but it's still twice as long as the maximum wavelength of visible light. And that's why with the power combo of tight laser beam and infrared light, LiDARs can see right through the fog, where our eyes and regular cameras fail. So what's the catch, you might ask? Let me show you with a quick thought experiment. We've got a pile of books, a shelf, and 2 test subjects, one average person and one buff gym bro. Our goal is to find out which of them is better at putting books on the shelves. Sounds odd, right? Strength isn't really a factor here. Both would probably do just fine. But what happens if we start making the books bigger? At first, no problem. Both test subjects can handle it just okay. But eventually the books get too heavy for our average guy. The gym bro still crushing it, cause his maximum lifting strength is higher. So now answer this. Which of the two is better at shelving books? It's a trick question, cause when the books are light, it doesn't really matter. But if you want to know who can handle the heaviest ones, is the strong guy. Same with the fog. We want to know how a self-driving car behaves in real-world conditions. Now tell me, how often have you been in fog so thick you can see more than 10 feet ahead? That's not fog, that's a smoke bomb. You wouldn't just struggle to drive, you'd barely be able to walk in that.
Optically, with my own eyes, I can no longer see that there's a kid through this fog.
To understand how a car actually behaves in different weather, big companies use special climate tunnels. Basically, huge weather labs for cars. Wind, rain, fog, snow, whatever you want. Want an apocalyptic hurricane scenario? No problem. Their setups let engineers test dozens of extreme conditions. But if you don't have access to a fancy lab, well, the street works too. Especially if you live in a lovely climate like mine. Here you get 9 months a year to test all kinds of scenarios. Now I don't have a Tesla, so let's look at some lucky folks who do live in perfect weather and compare this
Fudge!
with Tesla driving in real fog.
Some tight corners coming up here. Is the car going to be able to deal with it with no problems? Yeah, look at that. That dealt very, very nice over a bridge. Okay, it's braking quite hard, but it has gone around the corner well. The car's doing really nicely with it still.
Not quite as dramatic, right? Even in thick fog like in that video, the cameras hold up just fine. And if the autopilot starts having trouble, Tesla hands control back to the driver with a loud alert.
Whoa, okay, the car has aborted, but I just want to confirm that it is actually still driving. So it did still drive all of that as it was aborting, so it was still driving me around the corner and stuff.
And that's consistent with the level of autonomy Tesla claims. So if you step outside and visibility is down to a few feet, sure, grab a car with LiDAR, or maybe just stay home, cause with such visibility, even walking is risky. But if you can see clearly enough to drive safely, chances are Tesla can too. In the next test, things get weird. Mark decided to find out how self-driving cars behave in the rain.
Time to make it rain!
Once again, LiDAR does its job, and Tesla, well, the dummy doesn't stand a chance. Technically, the rain is the same thing as fog, just bigger drops.
Oh my!
So you'd think this should make things worse, but actually not really. Yes, the droplets are bigger, but there are way fewer of them, which means there's less stuff blocking the light. That's why even in heavy rain we can usually see much better than in fog. So logically, self-driving systems should see better too, but in a test the opposite happened.
This is really interesting. See, the Tesla can see the kid, but as soon as it starts raining, the kid is gone.
And LiDAR has issues too. As soon as the water turns on, the mannequin disappears and a wall of interference appears on the screen. The laser bounced off the rain like it was a solid object. So what does this mean? First, the rain is over the top. There's way too much water. It looks more like a waterfall. Second, the LiDAR didn't see the mannequin. It stopped because it thought the rain was the obstacle, not because it noticed the kid. Engineers know about this glitch. In this video, a Waymo car also froze when facing a water curtain. Okay, so the LiDAR didn't see the mannequin, but at least it stopped. But wait, why didn't Tesla stop?
Oh boy. Oh boy.
What did it see in that rain that made it decide to keep going? Luckily, we can find out. Do you see that? Even through the water, the mannequin is totally visible. So how does that happen? Why does the camera spot the dummy, but the LiDAR, which is supposed to scatter less, completely loses it? Okay, so yeah, LiDAR scatters less. But water has another superpower that changes everything. Absorption. Here's what I mean. When light hits a droplet, it scatters in all directions, but doesn't lose much brightness. So the more droplets you've got, like in fog, the more scattering you get, and the harder it is to see. And that's easy to test. Let's take a glass of water. Basically, one huge droplet. The light scatters a little on the surface, but then it passes right through the water, and we can see it on the other side. But if we take that same glass and fill it with vapor, it stops being transparent. Now it seems like there's less water, but we still can't see through it. That's because light gets scattered a lot, but not absorbed by water droplets. It's why we can see it perfectly fine in a swimming pool, but barely see through just a little mist. But with infrared light, which LiDARs use, it's the opposite. It scatters less, but gets absorbed more and loses intensity fast. So no wonder when Mark did that fountain, the LiDAR thought it was a wall. Okay, but if Tesla saw the mannequin, why didn't it stop? Well, it wasn't supposed to stop. We already mentioned that Mark didn't turn on full self-driving, but here's the twist. He didn't even turn on basic autopilot.
Huh?
Driving down the center of the road here over double yellows, which autopilot just doesn't do.
Why was it off? I have no idea. Let me know what you think in the comments, I'd love to discuss it. But hey, if we really want to know how Teslas handle rain, let's go back to the good old outdoor lab and look at some actual footage.
As you can see, it's raining really bad. I'm gonna have to let's see if autopilot stops. Yep, it stopped. It literally slammed on the brake. Man, it's crazy. Okay, there's a follow vehicle. Oh man, it's bad. Okay, it doesn't really want to drive. It took off autopilot immediately.
Once again, we see the system doing a decent job. Not perfect, but it sees the road, spots other vehicles, and when something goes wrong, it doesn't crash. It tells the driver to step in.
Give me warnings. Please put your hand on the wheel. Be careful, it's not a good weather.
And the rain is really heavy.
Wow.
Same deal in our own tests. See all that white noise around the car? That's just a rain. But for the LiDAR, it's a huge problem. You can still see the road and other vehicles, but the image gets noisy and visibility drops. But rain also creates a more serious issue, one that Mark didn't mention. In the rain test, water was only poured on the dummy, and the cars stayed mostly dry until the last second. But that's not how rain works in real life, unless you're driving with an umbrella. When it's really raining, sensors get hit directly, and that messes with both cameras and LiDARs. And sure, ice and snow can be melted with built-in heating like Tesla does, but with water and dirt it's much harder. Cameras get tilted, tucked away or shielded, but that doesn't always help. There's a fancy solution though, a self-cleaning system that detects dirt, sprays water, then blasts it clean with compressed air. But that's a research vehicle. This kind of setup is way too expensive and complicated for mass production. Still, it looks like Musk may have found a cheaper workaround. Back in 2022, Tesla scrapped both radar and ultrasonic sensor and went all in on Tesla Vision using only cameras. Some owners complain about more bugs and false alerts, but Tesla said safety scores weren't affected. Still, Tesla soon began testing a new type of radar and even started installing it in some car models. And honestly, that could be a game changer for several reasons. Radio waves cut through fog, rain, snow, even sandstorms. LiDAR is still more precise, sure, but for autopilot being off by a few inches, no big deal. This isn't a 3D scanner, and with radar, the computer has way less to calculate, so it's cheaper and faster. I wouldn't be surprised if someday camera plus radar becomes go-to combo for self-driving cars. Alright, time for the final challenge, the wall. Even though Mark claims
LiDAR is perfect.
we're once again faced with another one of its problems.
And as for the LiDAR, it isn't looking at what image is printed on the wall.
And in fact, LiDAR doesn't look at any image, cause it doesn't see color, it only detects shapes. The most it can do is measure how reflective a surface is. And sure, that sometimes helps it spot lane markings or signs, if they reflect well enough. But in the usual sense, LiDAR can see pictures. Some researchers are testing out spectral LiDARs, but they're super pricey, not very reliable, and still don't produce a true color image. So I don't think we'll see them on cars anytime soon. For proper color 3D scanning, LiDARs are paired with cameras. That's why self-driving cars can't rely on LiDAR alone. But as we've already seen, they can drive using only cameras. Sure, cameras aren't perfect either, they can still be tricked by fake signs. But here's the thing, that's not just fixable in theory, it's already been fixed. And I'm about to show you a perfect example. This is Kyle. Just like me, he watched Mark Roberts' video and wanted to run the same experiment to see how his Tesla would behave. So he built his own wall and set up a personal test.
Full self-driving.
We can also see that he's using an older software version and older hardware with a last gen chip and lower quality cameras.
Feet aren't touching, hands aren't touching. It's gonna hit the wall. Does not see the wall.
Kyle repeated the test multiple times, but each time the car failed to detect the wall and he had to slam the brakes.
I was a little bit bummed out. I did think I was gonna see a different result.
Then he remembered his friend had just bought a Cybertruck, so Kyle asked him to swing by and run the same test.
All right, we are in a Cybertruck.
This time the tech was way newer.
Ready, go. Hands off the wheel. Not touching the brakes, not touching the gas. So is the wall. Stops.
He ran several tests at different speeds, but the result was always the same.
Sees the wall, stops.
Now, some observant viewers might point out that the sun was already setting and the colors on the wall looked different, which may have helped the car notice it. But Kyle wasn't done. He made another video where all tests were run at the same time of day. He did 4 runs using the same 2022 Model Y with the old firmware, and every time the car still failed to see the wall. Then he tried the same with a new Model Y, but this time with updated firmware and hardware. And all 3 tests were successful. So yeah, we can finally say Tesla can see the wall. Well, on the newer firmware. It clearly shows that the version of autopilot matters and that the vision system and neural networks keep getting better. And I think we've only scratched the surface of what they'll be able to do next. So Elon, if Tesla stock jumps after this video, you know who to thank. I accept checks, cash, wire transfers, Cybertrucks, just not the ones running old firmware.